Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's so nice to see all your nice, shining, happy faces this morning. So, I'm Stephanie Parson. I'm the host of the Seniors Empowerment Truth series that we have every month. And we have a different topic, and we have different expert panelists that we bring in every month. So, I know several of you have been here to previous events, so I'm curious, how many first-time attendees do we have here? Yay! Great! Good to see you. Welcome. And did anybody bring a guest with them today, a new guest? No? Okay. All right. Well, I want to offer it to you. Please bring your friends, invite people, spread the word. We'd love to have more people involved. But appreciate you being here today. So I am a realtor by profession. I also have a senior move management company. So I specialize in working with seniors. And in doing so, I've come across a lot of things I've needed to learn and information that I need to know to be most effective at my job and help others. So on my journey of being educated, that's why I started putting this together. So there's so many things that I don't know, and I'm learning. So we're here to be open and share. So for the first time attendees, I'll just give you a lay of the land of how we typically run these. We try to start promptly at 10 o'clock, and we do our presentation part from 11 to 11:15, okay? After that, we open it up for questions. So we do ask that you hold questions that you have until the end. And we've given you a handout to jot down notes so you can put your questions down and remember to ask them at the end. So I appreciate your cooperation on that. And also just to let you know, we always have a no selling policy, okay? So our panelists are here today dedicating their time and information to you just out of wanting to help spread the word as far as what they do and how you can learn more and take advantage of things out there that we need to be exposed to. They will have handouts, more handouts and information if you'd like to pick it up at the end of the seminar. They'll also, of course, be here for the Q&A portion, and hopefully they'll be able to stick around for a few minutes after that if you want to engage with them and have any more specific questions at that time. The goldenrod sheet that we have there is actually a kind of evaluation. We like to get your feedback on how today's session was, any ideas that you have, if you'd like to be contacted back by anybody. So I think that's pretty much it for everything. So let's dive right in and get started. So today's session is about the truth about staying independent and your well-being. So I know that there's many things that are going to happen in all of our futures, and we have little or no control over a lot of them. We know we're going to age. Every day we live, we age. Many of us want to live forever, but we realize that's not a possibility. But we can live and live well, and many people are living to 100 or more. And provided we take action to develop healthy physical, spiritual, and social habits, we can live the best life we can for as long as we can. So today we have some expert panelists with us that we're excited to learn from. First up, we're going to have it kind of in two sessions because we have 5 people with us today. So first, we're going to have Dr. Beth and Beth, the two Beths, come up and talk. So come on up, guys. Any seat you'd like. And you each have a microphone. Okay, awesome. So we have Beth and Beth. So would you guys please introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're here today.
So is this on? Can you guys hear me? No, hold on. All right, that looks... Testing. Oh, there we go. Okay. Good morning. My name is Dr. Beth Templin, and I am a board-certified specialist in geriatric physical therapy. So physical therapy is my background. I am the owner of HouseFit Physical Therapy and Fitness. We are a specialty-focused geriatric clinic, and we offer both physical therapy and fitness options, specifically focused on helping seniors to stay healthy and active. We do that both in the patients' homes, and we also have a location down in South County. But we do offer some things out in the community, and in this area in particular, we offer a mall walk on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. where one of our physical therapists shows up, and we just have a fun activity to do, and we just kind of encourage people to show up and walk with us, make friendships, get out and get active, and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Beth Custer, and I work for MU Healthcare in Columbia, and we have an injury prevention program, and it was designed because of the number of modalities of injury, the types of modalities of injury that came into our trauma bay. And one of the top modalities of injury are seniors involved in motor vehicle crashes. And so one of the programs that we created was called Keep Your Keys, to get seniors to give them tips and tricks to stay healthy and safe on the roadways. So we've just taken our program statewide. We have facilitators right here in St. Louis. So I will be happy to answer any questions that any of you have after the presentation.
And you is?
Oh, it's the University of Missouri Healthcare. So I'm the injury prevention outreach coordinator.
Okay, great. For those who didn't know, MU. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. Beth, we'll start out with you. So how do you describe well-being?
So from a physical therapy perspective, it's all about the ability of being able to stay active and independent and enjoying your retirement fully. And what we find is one of the barriers is that people stop moving, and they start to get stiff and achy and painful, and then they start to get weak, and then they start to lose the ability to do the things that they love to do. So really from us, it's staying active to fully enjoy your life.
Okay. Beth, what do you see in your experience and what you do with a major fear that seniors have?
When talking about driving, a major fear that a lot of seniors have is, what if my kids decide that they want to take away my privilege to drive? They think maybe your children are thinking it's based on a certain age and not an ability behind the wheel. So we just want you to know that if you maintain your driving skills, if you continue to drive, you are going to be kept independent for a really long time. I got my motorcycle license last year, and I absolutely love to drive our Harley trike. I drive it all over the place. But I know when I put up the keys in the fall and I pick them back up again in the spring, I'm not the same driver that I was in the fall because I had so much experience behind the, driving it. And so it's really important. If you want to keep driving, we want you to keep driving. We don't want you to give up your keys for a number of months and then expect to have the same skill set when you get back in your vehicle in the spring. So keep practicing and stay healthy.
So can I ask how old you are?
I just turned 61 yesterday.
Okay, so even at 61, you realize that maybe in riding that trike, that if it sits for several months, your skills may decline.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not the same driver. I want to practice in a parking lot. I want to practice on some back roads. I'm not going to take it on a divided highway. I'm just going to start out slow, build up my skills again, and then I'm ready to go.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Beth, what are the common barriers that prevent us from remaining independent?
So when you look at the number one complaint of aging, it's difficulty with walking in stairs. And this is why, as a physical therapist, I get really excited because that's in my wheelhouse. But if you think about it, if you start to struggle with walking and start to struggle with stairs, then you start to limit yourself. So instead of going, we've had people that used to go down to the ballpark all the time, but they're nervous about climbing up into the bleachers. It gives them fear, and so they don't go anymore. Or they're worried about being able to walk from the parking to get into the ballpark. And so then they give up, this is when you start to give up the things you love to do, and then your world gets a little bit smaller. And then it starts to get harder to go out to the grocery store or to go run a couple of errands in a row. And so you limit yourself to one a day. And then your body actually gets weaker, and it's kind of a vicious, self-fulfilling cycle that when one thing gets hard, you just think, oh, this is a normal part of aging, was bound to happen, so you don't look for other options, you don't push yourself harder, you don't think it's an abnormal thing. But this is where we see the declines, and then people start to get smaller and smaller. So now it's hard to do the yard work because you don't feel as steady walking in the grass or on the gravel, or it's harder to mow the lawn because you don't have the endurance anymore. And instead of being able to rake the leaves in one day, you have to rake the front yard one day and then the backyard the next day, and then you're wiped out for 4 days to recover. But we see these things happen, but people will tell us this, but they just think it's normal because they got a year older, and we know that that's kind of not the normal aging process. But those are the biggest barriers. Walking, stairs, losing your mobility, that's the biggest barrier to staying healthy and aging.
Okay. So part of staying independent is really taking care of ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Beth, you said something interesting when we were talking on the phone before. Physicians spend on average only 11 seconds listening to patients. But seniors typically rely exclusively on their physicians to know everything there is to know about their health.
Yes, so that's taken straight from the literature about how overwhelmed primary care physicians are. So we actually, primary care physicians are typically booked every 15 minutes, whereas a geriatrician is booked every 40 minutes. So if you have a lot going on, I would encourage you to seek out a geriatrician. With that in mind, you're probably on a 12-month wait list to get into one because there's a national shortage to get in. Okay, but what our medical doctors are really responsible for is our medical health. So looking at your blood pressure, your blood sugars, your cholesterol, looking at your medications and your disease processes. They never ask you how you're doing physically. Now, they're required on a Medicare well exam to ask about falls because that's a required question. But other than that, they don't look at how you're driving and getting in and out of your car and doing your grocery shopping or cleaning your house, and if you're able to do all of those things. That's why it's really important to add a physical therapist to your healthcare team. We're going to look at your balance, your strength, your flexibility, your posture, your endurance, your ability to get up and down from the floor, your balance reactions. We're going to look at the physical strength that you need to do the things in your life to carry out successfully, enjoying your retirement and living independently. So while you still absolutely need that physician, that MD on your healthcare team, we also highly recommend getting a physical therapist, seeing them on a regular basis, taking care of those nagging aches and pains early, and having more of a preventative mindset instead of waiting until it becomes a really big issue, a really big problem, and you have major losses, either by having a fall or by just having to give up things that you love to do because they've gotten just too hard.
Okay, so you mentioned normal aging. So what is normal aging versus accelerated aging and senescence?
So some people may see this word out in the world. It's called senescence. Senescence, by definition, is normal aging. So what is normal aging? We all reach our peak physical amazingness, our strength, our endurance, our bone density between the ages of 25 and 35. And then every year after that, we have a 3% decline in 13 different systems in our body. Okay? Now, and if you think about it, you're like, oh, that's kind of early. But that's where all of our Olympic athletes are. The NBA, the NFL, the NHL, the MLB, all the letters, okay? All of our professional athletes and Olympians are in that age bracket, with a couple exceptions, a little bit younger and older. So every year after that, we experience a 3% decline. But that normal aging process is not enough to trigger illness and loss of independence, loss of mobility. Okay, so when people start having trouble with walking, when people start having trouble with stairs, when people are experiencing falls on a regular basis, it's because they're experiencing accelerated aging. Because of lifestyle choices, of not exercising, poor diet, poor sleep, poor social interaction, they're experiencing aging more rapidly than they should be. So the good thing is a lot of those things are modifiable. Yes, you're going to get a year older every year. We can't make that stop. But you can exercise, you can improve your diet, you can be socially active out in the community and do things to take care of yourself so that you don't experience that accelerated aging. Because when you experience accelerated aging, you hit what we call the disability threshold sooner. The disability threshold is where you are now dependent on somebody else in your life for one or more of your daily activities.
Yeah, Beth, we have a slide up here if you want to.
Oh,
Refer
you
to
have
that.
a slide. Oh, bless it, that's fantastic. So yes, the disability threshold. The goal for most people I talk to is to stay as far away from that line as possible, okay? And again, things that contribute to getting closer to that line faster are not exercising, so having a sedentary lifestyle, to looking at what you eat, to managing your health, your medical conditions, to being socially interactive and out in the community and having meaningful relationships and purpose. And if you're lacking in those things, that curve shifts and you hit that disability threshold sooner.
Okay. Talk to us about the triple whammy of aging.
Yes, so this notion of the triple whammy of aging was just published in the physical therapy literature last year, and it got to be really exciting. So the triple whammy of aging is three things. It's inactivity, illness, and injury, the three I's. Okay, so an injury would be if you have back pain, if you have arthritis pain, if you've somehow twisted your knee or your ankle and you're living with an injury or something painful that's keeping you from moving normally. Okay, and illness is anything that happens to you medically. It's a number of those chronic conditions and illnesses: diabetes, stroke, Alzheimer's, COPD, high blood pressure. So any medical illness that you might have is going to fall into that bucket. Even things like memory issues fall into that bucket. We talked about this, things like depression, anxiety. Any medical issue can fall into that illness bucket. The last bucket is inactivity. So does anybody know what the minimum recommendation for exercise is for seniors? It's 150 minutes a week of moderate level activity. What is moderate level activity? Moderate is you're exercising hard enough that you no longer have the breath power to sing a song, but you could probably carry on a conversation with the person moving next to you. The other option is 75 minutes of vigorous activity, and that's where you're breathing so hard that you can no longer say a sentence, but you can say 2 or 3 words at a time. So you can have 150 minutes at moderate or 75 at vigorous, and that's the minimum recommendation to prevent further decline. If you're looking to improve your current status, it's closer to 300 minutes a week of moderate level activity or 150 of vigorous. This is for adults 65 and older with or without chronic conditions. So you don't get a free pass because Beth, guess what? I got a lot going on. You need to be moving.
Thank you. And so I don't do that, and I'm
Most
younger
people
than that.
don't. Only 14% of adults in the U.S.
So is
meet
there,
that.
just being transparent here, I don't do that, but is there anybody in the room that is meeting that minimum threshold besides both of you guys? Okay, one back there. Great, awesome. Okay, so we have one. Okay, all right. Yeah, back there. So let's talk about what is resilience.
Oh, you didn't ask me this one.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's, resilience. So when we look at, from a physical therapy meaning, it has different than like of a spiritual or like a social or emotional meaning. So resilience is really based on your physiologic reserve, okay? So what does physiologic reserve mean? It means I still have gas in the tank. So you guys probably all have had somebody that had a UTI, or you've had one yourself, and as long as you have resilience, if you have that built-in reserve, if you have capacity, you just take your antibiotics and boom, you recover. Now, we'll see somebody else a year or two later that's lost some of that reserve because they're more frail, okay? There's more debility, and they'll get that same infection that they got 2 years ago, and now it lands them in the hospital because they don't have that reserve. They don't have the ability to take on the stress of an infection, fight it off successfully, and recover. Now a medical intervention besides just taking the antibiotics is required. So for us, looking at physical resilience, it's being strong enough, having good enough endurance and strength and balance that if something comes your way medically, if something comes your way personally, like a big stressful event in your life, your body has the physical capacity to take that on and continue moving forward without needing a major
So
intervention.
it's basically having that reserve so you can bounce back quickly.
Yes, and we do. So people who have good resilience, to me, have built up a good physiologic reserve so that when anything comes their way stressful, whether it's a personal thing, whether it's a medical issue, whether it's a fall, they bounce back quickly. But you guys probably all know somebody in your life that had a fall and bounced back. You also know somebody who had a fall and never came home again, okay? And it all has to do with the amount of physical strength and reserve that they've built up over the past couple of years that really determines that outcome.
So what kinds of things can physical therapy and fitness program assist with?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is people typically think of physical therapy after. Okay, I only need it after I had that knee replacement, after I have that shoulder surgery, after I've had a fall. What we want to do is to tell you to think about it beforehand, okay? So if something is harder this year for you than it was last year, my daughter's already asking me to pull out the Halloween decorations, okay? So if pulling out the decorations is harder this year than it was last year, you've already had a decline. If you have nagging aches and pains. So people typically come and see us at our clinic for arthritis issues, balance issues, dizziness, if they're worried about bone health, so osteoporosis or osteopenia. We see a large number of folks with Parkinson's, stroke, MS, other neurological issues. We actually see people specifically for memory issues because memory is so effective at keeping people independent, even with mild and to more severe, mild cognitive impairment through Alzheimer's disease. We see people because of loss of independence, so we call that debility, when you're starting to struggle doing the things you need to do. And we really just see a lot of people for healthy aging. We have one gentleman who was golfing 18 holes, and then again, he took the winter off. He came back, he could only golf 9 before he felt exhausted, and he didn't want to miss out on the second half of the course with his son. So he came to therapy. He had some balance issues, which were causing the nervousness. We got his balance back, and now he's back to golfing 18 holes. So he really hadn't lost a lot. He was still successfully golfing 9 holes of golf and doing okay, but then he got so tired he didn't feel comfortable doing the second half. So anytime you're starting to notice changes, it's okay to ask to go see a physical therapist for some minor aches and pains, for some feeling a little bit unsteady, for losing some of your endurance and your stamina. You may not qualify, but 9 times out of 10 you probably will. We've got standardized testing that we can do, so I know based on your age, this is how you should score, and if you score below it, we're going to call that doctor up and get that order. So it's really just changing the mindset on when it's appropriate to get PT. You don't have to wait until after. Reach out ahead of time.
Be proactive.
Yes, that's
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so you can get like kind of a baseline and then see
The
where you
doctors
fall.
are not proactive, I'm sorry.
The doctors
Yeah.
themselves are not proactive, but what we find is that when we call and say, we identified this and this issue, are you okay for PT? 9 times out of 10 they'll say yes. Now if we call them with an issue they didn't know you had, they will want to see you in their office, and rightly so. They're not going to write a script for shoulder pain if they didn't know your shoulder was never hurting in the first place. And that's appropriate. Every once in a while, and when this happens, we go through the roof. Somebody will say, they're old, I'm not writing the script. Like we've had doctors specifically decline physical therapy for balance and falls and deconditioning because they're 95, they won't get better. Even though this person is still living on their own, independently in a home, alone, and just had 3 falls because they changed their medicine and gave them 4 new scripts. Okay, so you have to be an advocate for yourself. And if your doctor says no to PT, we might encourage you to find a new doctor.
Yeah. They're hard to find though.
They are.
And these geriatricians.
I had a geriatrician and she switched practices. And I'm only 45, guys, but I wanted a geriatrician because I wanted somebody to spend time with me and not just throw medications at me, but teach me about healthy choices, sleeping, eating, exercising, all those kinds of things. And I can't find another one. And to get into a new doctor, I made the appointment in May. I'm not getting it until February. So even just a regular doctor as a new patient, it is hard. So you have to plan for it, but it can be done.
Okay. So does physical activity have to be strenuous in order to be effective?
The short answer is yes. If the exercise is light, meaning you're not getting your heart rate up and you're not huffing and puffing, you might be helping maintain at best. What we found is in order to fight back against that downhill slide of aging, so to fight back against that 3% change year after year, in addition to the health issues, in addition to the aches and pains, it's got to be moderate level. Now, if you haven't exercised in a long time, we don't necessarily suggest you go to the YMCA, jump into the high intensity HIIT class and go for it. It may be, or if somebody has a lot of medical issues or has a lot of aches and pains or gets flared up easily, it may be that you need to partner with a physical therapist to get you started. But our goal is to return you to fitness, even if it's been 20, 30, 40 years since you've exercised. It could be you have so much going on with your body, so much going on with your health, that you just need a healthcare provider to step in and be that bridge for you to get back to that fitness. And then the goal after that is long-term maintenance. And so whether you do that on your own, going to group classes is one of the best ways to do it, because they know if you show up and there's social and you make friends, you're more likely to keep showing up and looking forward to it, and it just really helps with that commitment and the long-term adherence. But light activity, not going to do it. You've got to push yourself. You should be breaking a sweat. You should be huffing and puffing. That doesn't mean you have to get there tomorrow. Again, it might be that you need to partner with a physical therapist to get you to that point where you're ready to do that on your own.
Some of the important things that seniors should consider when choosing a physical therapy program.
I'm very biased. Like I said, I specialize in geriatrics. We spend most of our time busting the myths of aging because people assume that there's nothing to be done. Well, you know what? Of course I fell last year, and now this year I'm using a cane, and next year I'll probably need a walker, and then I'll probably have to give up my keys, and maybe I'll have to move out of my house, and I won't be able to walk my dog anymore. People assume these things are just a normal part of the aging process. And so most of the time we have to bust those myths. So my entire team is fully aware of what normal aging is compared to not normal aging. And we've got the skill set, like we take vitals, we look at your blood sugars, all those kinds of things to help manage you medically while you're getting more fit. The typical therapy clinic, without seeing somebody that's specializing in geriatrics, you're gonna get brushed off and ignored and probably underdosed, meaning they're gonna give you those cute little 2 pink dumbbells, but a gallon of milk is 8 pounds. The big jugs of laundry detergent are up to 16 pounds. Pulling out your trash, bringing in the groceries, carrying a load of laundry. All of those things are heavy. And so we find oftentimes that even after somebody's finished therapy, they're still not where they should be. Then they might find us, and we just really take them to where they should be. So I think you can ask questions about, do you see a lot of older adults? What are your mindset on geriatrics? But we find that people often are, unfortunately, you would think healthcare providers in general have better knowledge of aging, and unless they're specializing in the field of aging adults, they truly don't. And they're worried they might break you, and they don't want to push you hard, or they're worried about a cardiac event or something else, and so they don't push you hard enough to get the changes you actually need to see to be successful.
So Dr. Beth, you're specialized in geriatrics. Are there other programs and people around here that,
No.
How hard is it to find?
So I think in the entire state of Missouri, there's 20 physical therapists that have a geriatric certification. It's not a popular field, and I don't know why. It makes me really happy. But just like finding a geriatrician, there are not enough therapists in the state that have additional training in. Now, I find a lot of therapists enjoy working with it. So, but I don't know that I can't speak to the training.
Okay. So real quick, let's talk about caregiving. So it's important for us to take care of ourselves, and especially if we're trying to take care of someone else. So I know you have a guide on caregiving, and I loved it. And you said in it, caregiving is more than just a role; it's a mission. And every mission deserves the right tools, support, and community. So real quick, can you speak to us a little bit more about, caregiving and keeping healthy when you are in that role?
Yeah, we find that caregivers always put themselves last, at the very bottom of the list. The problem is if your loved one is relying on your health and your physical ability to be able to keep them at home, you're the biggest risk factor. Because if you fall, or if you need your shoulder replaced, or you need knee surgery, or you throw out your back doing something, then they can't stay at home. So it's really trying to find ways to support the caregiver as well as the patient. We actually see a lot of couples in our gym space because we've got the wife, we have a husband over in exercise class, and we've got the wife in one-on-one therapy, or vice versa. Sometimes we have both members of the team, the couple, in therapy together. One, we're trying to get the caregiver stronger, and then two, we're trying to keep the patient stronger as well to be less of a burden. So we keep the caregiver stronger to take care of everything, and then we take care of the patient to be less of a burden on the caregiver. So I think not enough people look at the caregiver burden, but it is real. We have because we have such a specialty clinic, our youngsters are in their 60s. Most of our people are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. But everybody walks in, and because it's such a unique space, it's just a great way for people to let down their guard, and they'll talk to my front desk for 15 minutes about everything that's going on that they're stressed about while their loved one is getting therapy. And then we can have conversations and educate them. But it's really about, as a caregiver, maintaining your physical health, your mental health, and your medical health as well, so that you're as strong as you can be to be there for that loved one.
So just like on the airplane, they say, you know, when those drop, put it on you first before you put it on your child or someone that is traveling with you that may not be able to. So, all right, well, great advice. I know that Dr. Beth has a wonderful website. She has lots of free guides and resources on there. And she also brought further information, if you want to pick up after the seminar. So switching gears here a little bit, we're going to move on to Beth and Beth Coster. So first we're going to do a little test, right?
All right.
The road test signs.
Okay, as some of you know, during your renewal of your driver's license, you have to identify certain road signs. And these might be some that kind of pop up. And the first one, does anybody know what that is? Slippery when wet, right. And so the road gets the slickest right when it first starts to rain because the water mixes with the oily surface on the roads and it kind of creates that greasy surface. So we ask that you not put on your cruise control when it's first starting to rain because it can kind of throw your car into a mini skid. So we want you to kind of have that in the back of your mind. The one on the top right, big red one, do not enter. They take the letters off that. Those signs actually say like wrong way or do not enter. The reason they take the letters off the signs at the driver's bureau is they don't want you to get close enough to read those letters. They want you to recognize that sign from a distance and they want you to know, hey, I've got to stop, I've got to turn around. I saw a lot of the next one, and the first one on the bottom coming into St. Louis. It's not merge, it's very similar to merge. This is an added lane. So it means a whole new lane of traffic is going to be added and nobody's going to be coming into your lane. A merge is kind of its cousin. A merge has a single arrow and then it has a tail coming into that arrow, and that tail tells you what direction the traffic is going to be coming into your lane from. But if you see a sign like this, a whole new lane of traffic is going to be added and the road is just going to get wider. And then the last one, roundabout. You guys have roundabouts here? You like them or not like them? And typically, a lot of seniors just think, what the heck were they thinking? I had a normal, traditional route to get to my grocery store. They throw one of these in, and now it's a completely different route for me to take. So roundabouts, the reason that they made them is because it cuts down on the number of traffic crashes. It's in a normal intersection, there's like 30 different places where cars can collide, and a lot of them are T-bone type crashes. When you change it to a roundabout, everybody's entering at an angle, and so it takes away those sharp T-bone type crashes. Everybody's traveling the same direction. Everybody should be traveling a relatively slow speed. And you never stop or back up on a roundabout. So if you miss your exit, you don't stop or try to back up. You just go around again and get it the next time.
So it's like this.
Yeah, make sure you don't go the opposite way. And don't think of it as a four-way stop, because it's not a four-way stop. It's actually, the people within the circle have the right-of-way, so you have to wait for there to be a break in traffic. The crazy thing is, MoDOT the engineers have created these, but then there's been no real publicity on how to drive them. So the first time you come up with one of these, you're like, what are they thinking? If you know the science behind it, if you know how to drive them, then you're like, well, this kind of makes sense. But it's just kind of that break in communication that it's really difficult to get some people behind some of these different traffic intersections.
Can you guys all hear her okay?
No.
Okay, maybe you could just hold the microphone up a little bit closer to your mouth. Okay. So how can a senior assess their driving regularly?
Okay, so there's a number of questions that you can kind of ask yourself. You can ask yourself, am I starting to find myself getting lost, going to places that I normally would have no problem with? That can be kind of a red flag. If you're starting to find dents and scrapes on your car or mailbox or garage door, not quite sure how they got there. If you're having trouble keeping up with the flow of traffic, if you're starting to find yourself getting really angry while driving, those are some kind of things that you can kind of ask yourself. Am I changing as a driver? Now, if you answer yes to any one of those, that doesn't mean you should stop driving. It just means that you can make some changes in your driving. You might be able to travel during low traffic times of day. You might travel familiar routes. So there's different things that you can do to keep yourself safe behind the wheel without saying it's an either or. Either I master everything or I give up my driving. If you're having trouble parallel parking, what advice would you give someone? Practice or don't do it. Find some other place to park. You don't have to be an expert on everything. So you do what works for you.
So what are some things a senior can do to be aware of this and take charge of their health to keep driving longer?
So sometimes medications cause dizziness, drowsiness, lane distortion. There's all kinds of things that can happen depending on the medications that you're on. Sometimes it's a single medication, and other times it's a combination of medications. My dad was a veteran, and he was in World War II, and he went to the VA for everything. And so the people at the VA knew exactly what medications he was on. My mom was not a veteran, so she might have had 2 or 3 doctors. Dr. A did not know what Dr. B had prescribed. And so it's really important to have all of your medications in one place. Go to one doctor or pharmacist, lay out all of your medications and say, am I at risk? Are any of these medications together going to cause me to be an unsafe driver? Are they going to cause dizziness or drowsiness? I did a Parkinson's talk, and one of the Parkinson's people came up and said they got switched to a new Parkinson's medication, and it caused lane distortion. So he said all the lanes appeared to be very narrow when he's driving. And he said it was just the worst possible side effect, and he said that was when he just decided, I'm done. I'm not going to be a safe driver, so I'm going to give up my keys.
So that's something that he could have talked to his doctor about?
There might have been another medication that he could have been on, but I think at that point he was just like, I'm going to take the medication that was helping him for his Parkinson's.
Sure.
I'm willing to give up my keys.
Okay, yep, and that was a decision that he had to make. And,
Right, so
and the best
we
one.
like for seniors to have all of their medications written down with them at all times. So if you don't have a list of your medications, go ahead and do that. Make a list of medications, keep them in your purse or your billfold. So if you are involved in some type of traffic crash and you can't talk or you don't remember, you'll have that list with you that will go to the hospital. So if you're on a blood thinner, they're going to know, this is the type of blood thinner, this is what we need to do to help this person.
Okay, so talk about sitting correctly in the vehicle. Is that something that's important?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that you fit in your vehicle. We want to make sure that the steering wheel is at least 11 inches from your chest. And that's because the airbag goes off with such force that it can actually do some damage if you're sitting too close to your steering wheel. So your piece of paper in front of you is about 11 and a half inches. You should be about that distance at least from the steering wheel of your car. We want to make sure that you're looking over the top of the steering wheel and not between the steering wheel and the steering column. We want you boosted up. If you're having trouble driving at night because the bright lights kind of impact you, you can get a booster seat for your car, and that will actually raise you up so that the headlights aren't going to meet you head on. They're going to meet you at a different angle. So that's something that you can kind of think about. So you can do all kinds of things to make driving safer and more comfortable for you. We want the seat belt to go across your collarbone and then snugly across your hips. We don't want you to tuck it behind if it's starting to get uncomfortable. We want to make sure that you can reach both the gas and the brake with the same foot. We had one lady tell us that she used her cane for the gas and her brake for the foot. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we will go out to your car afterwards and we will get you sitting in your car so you can actually reach both with your foot and you don't have to rely on your cane anymore.
Okay, okay. So you were talking a little bit about roundabouts, and in our area here, they're just adding more and more roundabouts, and they're putting in diverging diamonds. So has anybody been driven across the Zumbell exit or Cave Springs and felt like you're playing chicken and you didn't know if you're in the right lane, and it's chaos.
Definitely the worst one, I think,
Yeah.
is crossing Interstate 70 on Mid Rivers. That lanes that go all over the place. They must have a drunk army.
Okay, so
Actually, a diverging diamond.
those are diverging diamonds, and that, I believe, is what Cave Springs and Zumbell both are going to be.
And you're right, they just look like it is just chaos. There is a method behind the chaos. If you talk to the engineers that designed these, what was happening is there were long lines of waiting before they could make that left-handed turn to get onto the interstate. So they thought, what if we just cross the lanes of traffic, you start to get on the left side first, and then you can just enter into the traffic, enter into the interstate, and it makes it a lot smoother transition. But again, they don't tell people, hey, we're going to have a public service announcement that tells you how to manage these different driving situations.
How to get from the left over to the right.
Exactly. And if it's a snowy day and you can't see the lane markings, it's a nightmare. So one thing that we suggest is if you have to go that way, like you can definitely pick to avoid them, and that's plan A. Plan B, if you have to drive across those, if you can ride with somebody who really feels comfortable with them and they can talk you through it and say, look, I'm in this lane, but that's where I'm going to end up, and so I'm going to follow this lane of traffic. If they can talk you through it at a low traffic time of day, it starts to make sense. MoDOT has a bunch of videos on YouTube, and it shows the traffic from a bird's eye view, so you can actually see how the traffic is moving and why they're moving. You just have to go look for those videos. They don't have them as part of the local news. And then drive them by yourself or with a friend at a low traffic time of day to kind of build up your strategy of how to drive them. So the roundabouts are kind of what started the whole thing. And then they threw in the diverging diamonds, which I think, the first time I drove it, I had no idea. I wasn't sure which lane I was supposed to be in. After you drive them a few times, you're like, okay, now this makes sense.
It just helps move traffic flow, but it's scary and a little confusing. And I think one of the benefits we've seen with all this construction on those viaducts is we haven't seen so many people out there, looking for money and that. And I thought they changed an ordinance, but I found out from Steve Ellman that no, they're just not there because it's too dangerous right now to be speeding out there. So that will be back as well. But I would encourage you, if you live in the area and you're going to be commuting over Highway 70, please get familiar with it before you tackle it. Go to the MoDOT websites to see.
If you go to MoDOT, you can go to YouTube and type in MoDOT diverging diamond, and it will show you a number of videos on how the traffic actually flows in each one of those different diverging diamonds.
Okay. And is that something that you guys practice or review in the Keep Your Keys program?
So the Keep Your Keys program is really a 30-minute, it's just a really short program. It's designed to keep drivers mentally, medically, and physically fit to drive. So we talk about how to navigate new roadway constructions, we talk about new car technologies, we talk about what you can do with your, to make sure that your vision is on point. If you're having any problems with hearing, kind of some strategies that you can do. So we just try to give you just a complete package in a very short amount of time. You can see I talk really fast, my facilitators talk really fast, but we get you the information. I left a bunch of Fit to Drive booklets. Those were written by MU Healthcare's trauma team, which is something I'm a part of, and MoDOT. We got together and decided, you know what, we have all these guides for teen drivers. We don't have anything for senior drivers. And those are the people that really kind of want a refresher. And so this Fit to Drive booklet, it contains so much information for you. So if you're at all concerned with your driving or you just want another resource, be sure to pick one of those up. I have facilitators to do the Keep Your Keys program right here in town. So if you think, you know what, I belong to a group and I think we'd like to have one of those programs, our programs are all completely free of charge, and you just go and get the information. They tend to give out a Fit to Drive book at those, and they also give you a file of life, which is a place for you to keep track of all of your medications.
Yep, okay, awesome. So what else did I want to ask you? I lost my place, I was listening so intently. Talk about what's involved with renewing your driver's license these days, and the Real ID.
So the Real ID, that started back in like 2020, and then when the pandemic hit, they kind of pushed it back. So now I think we're sitting at, you need a Real ID by 2025. The Real ID is a little bit more stringent of a file, so it'll actually allow you to board domestic flights. It lets you gain entry to federal buildings. If you have a passport, you're golden. You don't have to worry about the Real ID. The Real ID can be a pain when you go to certain driver's license stations. Now, I went to one in a really small town, and they were just like, here you go, and they were very, very helpful. I've heard horror stories of people saying, I needed to find my marriage license, and I didn't know where my marriage license was. It's almost easier to get a passport than it is the Real ID. But if you want to get the Real ID, you have to bring in a non-laminated Social Security card, a birth certificate, and then proof of residency. And then you have to tell them when you go in, I'm here for my Real ID, because if you don't, they're just going to renew your driver's license, and it's just like you've done all that work for nothing. If you're confused, if you're a little bit concerned, bring a friend with you. Now, my dad was 95 years old, and he wanted to keep his driver's license. And he was only driving to the local Dollar General. He was buying peanuts and popcorn and driving back home. So he wasn't like cross-country tripping or anything, but he really wanted to keep his driver's license. So he went in to renew his driver's license, and he was struggling a bit mobility-wise. He had a walker with him, and he was kind of shuffling. And so the people at the motor vehicles department said, you know what, we're going to have you drive today. So it's not a guaranteed thing. You hit this age, you get it for this many years. Sometimes they'll request that you redrive. So they went out to the parking lot, and my dad was going to get in this car, and he looked over at the examiner and said, it might be safer for you if you just watch me from here. And both of them just started laughing, and they got in the car, and Dad took him for a ride, and he got his license for 2 more years. I think he showed that he was with it, he was able to laugh at his age. They told him, you know what, just make sure that you stop a little bit longer, triple check instead of double check to make sure that there are no cars coming. But you know, they kind of gave him some tips, and they sent him on his way. So, you know, if you're concerned, bring somebody with you and kind of let them help you with that process. You do have to identify road signs, you have to pay a renewal fee, and they check your vision.
Okay. So I think a lot of times when someone mentions the word senior and driving together, they immediately think that, you know, that's somebody to avoid driving around. So, so what do you suggest for seniors to do to stay safe? And what do you say, is that a myth? Or is that...
So we start our Keep Your Keys program, and it's called Keep Your Keys, not Take Your Keys. My husband always says, pass a basket around and see how many people put their keys in it. Like, absolutely not. It's called Keep Your Keys. And one thing that we start out with is we tell the people, seniors are some of the safest drivers on the roadways. You guys have many more hours of experience behind the wheel. You guys don't text and drive. You're very seldom do we have an impaired senior driver. You wear your seatbelt. You're doing everything right. The dangerous thing is you have to share the road with those who aren't. You share the road with the people who are distracted, impaired, who are just not following the general safety rules. So they get frustrated when you're following the traffic rules. It's not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It might take you a little bit longer to get from point A to point B. That's perfectly okay. You know, so one of the myths is, you know, when you get to a certain age, you should give up your driver's license. My mother-in-law is 93, and she does perfectly fine behind the wheel. It would be, you know, a big mistake to give up her keys, because she is following all the rules. She's getting from point A to point B safely. So it's not based on an age. It's based on an ability. If you're having some certain red flags, like maybe you're starting to mix up the gas and the brake, maybe you're having trouble navigating to stay in your lane, maybe you're having trouble at intersections and you're not paying attention to the rules of the road, maybe you're having several little crashes throughout the year, absolutely think about giving up your license. But if you're not having any of those and you're a safe driver, we want you to maintain that by continuing to drive.
So how do you talk to a loved one about it's time to retire from driving?
So kind of the red flags that I was talking about, that's what you're watching for. So if one of your loved ones is starting to have some issues and you see that they have poor lane control or they're mixing up the gas and the brake, that would be a conversation that needs to take place really quickly. Now, as you know, you're going to hear somebody better than other people. It might be a son that you hear and a daughter that you were just like, I'm not going to listen to anything she says. It might be a friend. It might be a neighbor. You want to find somebody who they'll listen to, and that's the person that you want to have open up that conversation. Know that it's going to be one conversation of many, but have a plan in the background before you actually have that conversation. What are you going to do so that this person continues to be mobile? Because we know if they're trapped at home and they become anxious and depressed, that's not going to be good. So we want a transportation plan. So what are you going to do to help them get where they want to go and still maintain their independence?
So creating a plan about
Absolutely. So there's a transportation plan in the Fit to Drive book. It just lists different places that you might want to go, how far it is from your home, and then what options do you have for getting there. Now, if you've never had to look into transportation options, you might say, I don't have any options. You probably have many options right here in St. Peter's that we don't have in Columbia. So I would suggest talking to Aging Best or Aging Ahead, talking to different places and saying, what transportation options are out there? You would be surprised at how many you have in your area that you just don't even know about. And again, the retiring from driving, it can happen at any time. So my husband bought me an electric bike last year, like 1 year ago. We were so excited. I had gone half a mile on it. I was trying out the different pedal assists. I put it in pedal assist 2 and it took off and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Well, then I decided I was going to turn around, but I didn't take it out of pedal assist. And I started to turn, and when I let off the brake, the pedal assist kicked back in and it threw me from my bike, and I broke my tibial plateau, which I didn't even know I had. And I was in a wheelchair for 8 weeks. It was horrible. It was terrible. And so I had to immediately give up driving for 8 weeks, and I had to figure out what was I going to do? How was I going to get to these places where I wanted to go? So luckily my husband was retired and he was able to drive me, and I was able to get every place I wanted to go. But if I didn't have that support, I would have been really frustrated on figuring out what am I going to do. So even if you are in top-notch health, you might want to think about what am I going to do in case something happened. If I had a broken bone, if I had to retire from driving tomorrow for just a short amount of time, what am I going to do so I'm not stuck at home?
Yeah, so you've experienced that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Ladies, anything else I didn't ask that you'd like to add at this time? No? Okay. So they're going to stick around after this, but right now we're going to switch out from these two lovely ladies to our Lindenwood ladies. So give them a round of applause. Pick a seat. All right. So, well, thank you for coming today again. And so we're going to continue to talk about independence and well-being. So each of you would like to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're here today.
Hi, I'm Meredith Birding. I work at Lindenwood with Whitley and Annie. I'm a professional advisor in the College of Business, and I assist with the W.I.S.E program.
Sure if this is on, it is. So I'm Dr. Annie Alameda, and I teach at Lindenwood in the health sciences. So I teach classes in health and well-being for kind of throughout the life cycle. So, and I just wanted to add real quick, that was so informative from the best back there. It was great. And I'm still thinking about that mid-rivers and the diverging diamonds. Like, it's a hot mess. And I'm honestly gonna go watch that MoDOT video because I'm driving there with my mom or my kids. I'm like, I can't figure it out. So that was just, I'm gonna go check out those videos. So I feel you. Anyway.
My name is Whitley Huxell. I also work at Lindenwood. I am the office manager for the College of Science, Technology, and Health. I have a background in health and wellness, as well as am a certified health coach. So that's kind of my contribution to the W.I.S.E team from a health and wellness standpoint.
So, and one of you has a geriatrics degree?
That'd be me.
That would be
I have my
you.
master's in gerontology, yes.
Okay, fabulous, thank you. And are there many people who have that degree?
I can say I'm one of the last people to go through the program at Webster University.
There isn't a local educational institution that offers that anymore here?
No, Webster was the only one in Missouri that offered it, just as a master's program as itself. Everything else is kind of combined with nursing, and that was not my field of study before getting my master's. And I am the last student to graduate from Webster University with my gerontology degree.
And you would think with St. Louis having so many of the big hospitals here and that would not be the case. So encourage younger people to
I was going to mention that Lindenwood had a degree in gerontology, a minor in gerontology, and for whatever reason it was dropped or sunsetted when they stopped the program. And actually, now that we have a growing W.I.S.E program that you're going to hear a little bit about, but now that we have some programming for older adults on our campus, there's a little more buzz about bringing that back. So we have a graduate degree in health sciences, and our dean is absolutely on board with us looking at adding a specialization in gerontology, which would be great to be able to do a lot of community outreach and just offer a lot of free services to share some learning, and so that's kind of exciting. So we'll see if that's to come.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So as humans, we're wired to be connected to one another, and when we use our brains and our bodies as they were intended to, we age better. So being socially engaged is an important part of staying independent. So the ladies here from Lindenwood are here to talk about that social engagement and what they offer. So does one of you want to start out by talking about what the W.I.S.E program is?
Yeah, for sure. So the W.I.S.E program, W.I.S.E stands for Wellness Inspired Social Enrichment. Our fun picture back there. So W.I.S.E was created when I first came to the university with my gerontology background and us being right across the road from Cedarhurst. I saw the connection there. We're a big university. Why aren't we doing more with the aging population in St. Charles? So I was new. I didn't know what to do. So I found Annie. And after that, we kind of took off and started planning all these fun events and getting the older population on the campus and to engage with our students, faculty, and staff. So now the program has turned into what we're known for as cyber seniors, which is where older adults come to campus and they're partnered up with a student to learn any sort of technology that they would like. So that's our main program. We also have a teach and taste where we have a nutritionist come in, a dietitian, teach about how to make a simple, healthy meal, and then you get to taste it, and then you get to have lunch with some friends. We also do other fun events on campus as well for the aging population so they can come and just mingle, hang out, have fun. So that's kind of how it started and how we're going right now.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I love these pictures because I wanted to point out these are not stock photos. This is real live programming within the last year at Lindenwood. Yeah, so that's Justin, who was one of my students there. You can see they're working on the laptop there. Top right, there's Whitley up there with Nelda and Frank. Whitley, you want to tell that story about the golf cart? What's going on there?
Yes, we actually, so Frank, his participant, was on the field hockey team, and he so desperately wanted to go watch her play.
What do you mean by participant?
Cyber senior. So in the program, Frank was a participant. His student that he was paired with is on the field hockey team. And so he wanted to go watch her play. So we rented out one of our spaces that kind of overlooks our football field where the field hockey team has their games. And we hosted them so that he could kind of sit there without being like exposed to the elements. It wasn't very warm that day, and could still enjoy watching Izzy, was her name, play. But we did decide to kind of splurge a little bit and got the golf carts on campus. We picked them up on the golf cart. They loved it, and so this is just a picture of us kind of in front of that. I was their chauffeur for the day.
She was great at it. And I just wanted to mention that a lot of what WISE does is try to take campus events that are already happening and try to make them age-friendly and accessible and comfortable. So if you see up there at the top left, that's during the Go Red campaign. I don't know if you've heard, in February, the American Heart Association does a lot for just awareness for heart disease. And so that's some fun red glasses and everyone just socially interacting. So our program, while there is some education to it, a lot of it is just that social connectedness, just getting everybody in a room and being happy. So I'll just sit back down. I want you to just
Okay,
pictures one.
thank you. So the opposite of social engagement is isolation, which that can negatively affect our well-being and independence, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're social beings by nature. I mean, we think about when we were babies and little people, we played with others. That's how we learned expressions and how to interact. And as we go through school, we learned in social environments, right, by having communication, and we go into the workforce. Think about your work career. It was by working in teams, right, to be productive and have positive outcomes. And then as we age, we continue to socially be with our community members, with our families. And what we find is when we take that social piece away and we isolate, it has some very negative consequences in a couple areas of wellness. One, in your physical health. And that's because you're just not moving as much. You're in one spot. So we've taken out just the actual movement to go be social. And then really what I think is very impactful, and it's negative on our health, is that there's a couple of emotions that are associated with isolation. And some of those with our emotional well-being are loneliness, sadness, and kind of just a loss of purpose and meaning. And those are very negatively impacted when you isolate. Okay? So we're socially connected, we don't feel as lonely, we feel happier, and we feel a purpose. Oh, I'm going to go to this because I'm going to talk to so-and-so, or I want to learn about this. So when we isolate, again, it has that negative impact, very much.
So I have a note here. CDC has reported social isolation and loneliness have been linked to increased risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, dementia, and ultimately earlier death.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So could you say social engagement is kind of a life and death decision if you're...
Yeah, I think social engagement is a natural medicine to combat those and to boost our mental health. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Benefits of social engagement specifically. What do you guys see and what have you found out through your program?
Yeah, so overall, speaking to the social isolation part of that, sometimes we don't think that, going out to things like this, or maybe getting out and driving really have like that big of an impact on our overall wellness, our overall well-being, but it really does, right? So if we're socially isolated, like Annie mentioned, we might have higher anxiety, higher stress. But getting out and coming to events like this, events maybe like we offer, going to the library to an event, which we're currently at the library. I didn't mean to do that, but I did. Things like that, they matter more than you may think. Things like they can help with grief because you're out and you can kind of express that to maybe your friends that you met at whatever events that you decide to attend. We have noticed working with the population and offering cyber seniors that a lot of them go to group fitness classes together, swimming at the Y, things like that. And they look forward to those every day or every Wednesday or something like that. And so it can help promote relaxation. And the big thing back to mental health and then that cognitive decline, because you're able to kind of be around other people and keep that mental sharpness that other people can help provide, right? And then also you realize that you might be going through something that when you're at home you think that this is just me, I'm the only one dealing with this. But then when you get out and you're around other people, you realize, oh, well, that's not just me, and this person's going through that too, and maybe you can both realize that maybe it's not as big of a problem or an issue as you thought it was when you were at home kind of stewing on whatever that is. So just being social and talking to other people really does lend well to your wellness overall.
Okay. So what are some of the fears that you think seniors have in socializing?
So I think seniors have the same fears as, people my own age. I think we want to be accepted. I think we're afraid of rejection. I think we have the fear of the unknown as well. So I think those are some of the fears, but I think as we age, we become more and more in our heads about it because of ageism and that's such a thing happening these days. I think there's also the fear of humiliation or embarrassment if they can't do something. And the option of mobility and mobility issues could be a major fear. You might show up to a place and you don't know if you can, use those stairs to get in, or is there a ramp, is there an elevator, things like that. So just questioning even that stops people from going out and causes isolation. And I think those fears are the same through no matter what age we are, but I think it's more relevant as we start aging that those are, more at the forefront of our minds.
And as we age, we have issues with, one, getting to places, vision, hearing, all of those things. So it makes it a little bit more challenging, but so important to stay socially engaged.
Definitely.
So do you think it's harder for men or women to socialize?
You all think. Say here.
Raise of hands.
Right.
We have a vote.
I think it depends on the situation, for sure. The literature would lend itself towards women are more likely, if there's a social event, to come to the event, whether they're in a single or in a couple. So sometimes that's dependent on that situation. But in our experience with our program, we do currently have more women than men involved. If it's a couple, we tend to, it might have been that the wife said, we're going to this. Okay, we're going to that. But we are trying to reach out to other groups that are out there that exist that are mainly more male dominant. Different types of clubs and already existing groups that might lend themselves to one gender or the other, and try to reach out and have programming and say, don't make any assumptions about what you might want, but to say, what do you need and how can we help? And that's really kind of what the W.I.S.E program is. We don't want to make assumptions about what older adults might want to do and interact. We want to ask and then figure out if there's a way that we can offer that and get the students involved. So I think it depends on the situation. We want to, but we have had more women. Just gonna say.
Yeah, and maybe it, like she said, situations. I would argue that more men would like to get together for a golfing club than women. So, I'll drive the golf cart and you guys can do the golfing. But so it kind of intends on what the activity is. What is that group doing that really kind of lends to that. So to say one, like anecdotally, to say one is more social than the other is kind of difficult.
Okay, all right. So what would you say if someone said, I'm too old to learn something new?
Well, that's my favorite thing to kind of debunk, because I don't know if you heard, but we're from a university, so we're pro-learning all the time. And I would say it's never too late to learn something new. Like the mantra we should all have is that we want to be lifelong learners. We're learning things all the time. And so if you're doing that, it could be you're acquiring new interests, you're building skills, deeper skills for certain things sometimes, and embarking on fresh adventures. You can look at learning in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be educational, like you're seeking a degree for something, right? A lot of people think learning, well, I'm going to go get an education for something, but it could be learning how to cook. For us, it's learning how to use your cell phones and your devices that change every day. We don't know what the new iPhone 2074 is going to look like, so we're going to be learning that too. And so we're always learning, and the best thing to do is just keep an open mind about it, that everybody's learning something. You may think I know more than you about tech, but maybe when we get in the thick of it, maybe you know more, and you could probably teach me something that I don't know. So it's a good exchange of knowledge whenever and whatever we're doing. So
That's what I wanted to add about when we are trying to do intergenerational programming. So with the W.I.S.E program, not only do we want to have events where any senior can just interact and be social, but to bring in our students, because what we found is learning isn't just a one-way street, it's two-way. And I know when I would sit down and talk to my grandma, the life lessons that she could share and the things that she experienced. She lived here in St. Charles, went to St. Charles High, and learning about me, I was thinking about it, and what she went through. I was like, gosh, I would have known that if I wouldn't have sat down and talked to her about it. And I still have little tidbits of information about relationships, about marriage, about things that literally I still am like, oh, thank goodness my grandma told me about that. My husband would be out in a tent right now. So I just wanted to mention that that's what I found as a faculty member so valuable, is to connect my students. And while the seniors have left going, oh my gosh, this was great, I learned so much, the students are going, oh my gosh, I learned so much. Let's do more of this. So I just think the learning isn't always the information coming in, but it's what you can share going out that impacts people.
You've had your finger up for a long time.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question, and it's great that you all want to get more people onto the Lindenwood campus. I have a friend who's 79, I'm 74, and we went to every single home basketball game last year. And you know what that setup is like? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, if you don't pay the higher amount, you can't sit in those top seats that are stable seats. You have to sit in the bottom seats that are frightening for seniors. Okay. And they let us do that, but they said if we come next year, unless we pay the whatever $500, we cannot sit in those more stable seats.
What does that person look like who said that? I might know someone.
Well, you probably
We're
do.
on it. Yeah.
But there's got to be, and all of those for your high donors, they don't take up that whole area.
Agreed.
Some of us seniors who love the basketball
Yep.
or any sport
Yeah.
have a safe place to sit.
yes.
So I'm glad you mentioned that comment, and it's well received. And I know that we are already trying to be proactive with that. And there is a women's basketball game actually on December 11th. It's not on our flyer because we don't have the details yet. But I actually just forwarded them an email this morning to our administration and talking about the setup. And so, yeah, so if you get our information and get our distribution for W.I.S.E, you will get information about, I think, the accessibility and meeting your needs. So thank you very much for telling us that.
All right. So specifically, can you guys talk about a little bit more specifically about the cyber program? And unfortunately, I know that the program that's starting again is already filled, unfortunately. So big demand for it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about
Sure.
what it is so people can be aware of it and maybe sign up for the next one early.
Yeah, so with our W.I.S.E program, we partner with Aging Ahead, and they provide all kinds of services to 60 and up adults. But they had done a program that's a nonprofit organization called Cyber Seniors. So it's not our program, so we've used their curriculum. And it was first designed with high school students, teaching seniors any type of technology they wanted to learn. So we thought, well, what if we could do that? So I have a wellness class that I teach. So on the 8 weeks that I talk about social and emotional well-being, instead of these poor students having to listen to me talk about how we learn about social and emotional well-being, I thought, well, why don't we just put ourselves in a social learning experience? So we partnered with Aging Ahead. They had 20 seniors sign up, and I had 20 of my students. We'd meet in a classroom similar to this once a week, and they would be paired one-on-one to learn whatever technology that you all wanted to learn. We did some surveys to look at what you wanted to learn, and I tried to pair a student. I will say I could probably put any of the students with any technology and they're just fine. But I know me, I'm an Android. So if I'm sitting next to an iPhone, or my mom's got an iPhone. I was like, would you just get an Android? I can't figure this thing out. But what was wonderful is the Cyber Seniors program, it has some guidance to what people would want to learn. But let's say we were on the day that it was going to be about navigating your email, and we had someone who was a pro on their email. They're like, can we go ahead and jump ahead to learning FaceTime so I can call my grandkids? Sure. So we learned really quickly that individual one-on-one was the best way to run this program. And so really, we started out facilitating and had all these slides, and then we were like, oh, everyone's just it's just going. And it was so cool to see that we'd get together and we didn't need much guidance. They'd sit down and talk about what they did all week and then say, let's get back to our learning. And it was anywhere from Amazon to maps.
McDonald's app, get your points.
That
was a big one. And she got homework. She was told, you got to use the McDonald's app this week so that next week you can tell us how it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked well.
And we had Jerry who brought in his home desktop because that was the computer he wanted to use and to learn how to do online tours and things like that. I can think of Izzy and Frank FaceTiming in the same room, practicing, and it just was wonderful. So our plan right now is to continue to have it at least once. We work in semesters, so kind of in the fall and the spring, but our plan as far as being sustainable is to be able to open it up to more classes, because now we've kind of got it down so we can move out of pilot mode and see if we can, cookie cutter and keep expanding to have more impact. So that's kind of the goal moving forward. Our next session is starting the 28th of September, and yeah, it filled up right away. But
Day and a half.
So we know the needs there.
I'm like, oh, this is great. It'll tie in, and I'm like, oh, next day. Sorry, you were full.
No one was expecting that,
Yeah.
so.
So we're hoping to have 2 sections, so maybe up to 40 adults in the spring, and then continuing even larger in fall.
You know what would be great is some of these seniors that have been in the program to also come back and help out with the newbies.
We have had some repeats. They just want to come and hang out. They bring treats for the group, and it's just great. They're like, they kind of fluff us up. They come in and they're like, these girls are so great, you're gonna have a great time. And we're like, thank you.
So do you guys have an example of a senior where social engagement in these programs have made a difference in their lives?
Yeah. I can speak to one particular person. It was our very first Cyber Seniors run, so this was last fall. And they were just more reserved, very, I would say their demeanor was more closed off. And they were just kind of, I would say we were in this, that we were coming out of COVID, right? So everybody was just a little more kind of closed off in general. But I felt like her personality was a little subdued. And it didn't take but 3 classes, and she was literally night and day a new person. This is the person that continues to sign up and come back. She texts us, sends us emails, calls us about things, brings treats. She's a baker, and so she provides baked goods for all. We love it. And just, so she in particular was just transformative. And the way she's turned out, and I think that she just needed that extra, I don't want to say love, but she needed that extra love that we all could provide, that energy that everybody had, and that the students provided. I think that they were surprised that they were so connected to the students, and that they had so much in common, and they didn't feel, disjointed in a way. They felt like they were closer than they had intended. They came in with maybe some preconceptions about how things would go. As we do, we have those things, but those were kind of early on broken down. Did you guys want to say anything else about that?
I know the person you're talking about, and we had a Halloween dress up for one of the sessions because it was right around this fall time. And at the beginning, if I would have said this would have been the last person who probably would have participated in dressing up, and this person was head to toe in a full Halloween costume.
Yes.
So, and we had some side conversations, and she had some challenges with mobility and with family and employment, and we were able to provide her some resources through Aging Ahead that she might not have been aware of. I learned from Aging Ahead some different things. At high school, through a shop class, was able to help with their vehicle, so it was affordable. I mean, some things, I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know this exists. So I'd say it's definitely one of those, socially she was connected, but we were able to, because she was there to talk to us, we were able to connect her with other resources.
So it sounds like you guys started off with maybe the cyber seniors, and you're like building it and incorporating more things into it. So talk about what some of the other opportunities you guys offer for them to take advantage of.
Yeah, so we, like I said before, we do have the Teach and Taste events that we throw a few times a semester, where we have the dietitian come in and we talk about, a healthy option, and then we show how to make it, and then you get to taste it, and then have lunch with friends. On top of that, we've done things such as a homecoming float. So our W.I.S.E participants, my husband and I have a tractor and a wagon, and we decorate it, spend hours and hours decorating it, and everybody jumps on and they get to throw out candy in the Lindenwood homecoming parade. So we've done things like that. We've done things like Hearts for Hoops, where they come to campus, get to hang out, mingle, watch the basketball game, interact with students and other faculty and staff on campus. We've done Christmas trivia, winter trivia. We've done the Halloween costume day whenever they come to class. Just things like that we try to bring them onto campus when there's other events happening. They're always invited to tailgates to come tailgate with us for football games, things like that each of us are involved in. We try to make it age friendly, and then on top of that we go to all the campus events and make that also age friendly. We also have a dark carnival on campus that we plan to advertise. A dark carnival, it's like a Halloween kind of carnival on campus. Dark.
Okay,
yes.
I was saying dart.
But it's not really dark.
I really understand that part.
It's just a fun Halloween carnival fall festival on campus. And then we also have like Winterfest that all of our W.I.S.E participants are also invited to, and we just try to make it as friendly as possible. We also did our first annual W.I.S.E Olympics this year. That was in July, and that was so much fun. We did a little competition. It was so much fun. We had a catered meal and just a lot of socialization and fun fitness. It was a really good time.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when we started W.I.S.E, we were very passionate about it, and we were excited, and so we kind of started, building the ship as we were already way out in the middle of the ocean. And I think through some great leadership with our dean and talking about the impact that we've had, we've done some kind of pre and post data. It's like the researchy university people in us, to actually show that we have positive outcomes in our students and older adults. So we're not just saying, no, just trust us. We're actually using validated, reliable tools to show that after being in our programs from cyber seniors, that we're boosting emotional and well-being, not only in the seniors, but in the students as well. And that's been really powerful to use with, so we found that, oh gosh, instead of just, what do we want to do, and asking and doing kind of, that's random events, which has been wonderful, we now have a little bit of a golden nugget here that we can say, you know what, this is impacting students, and build it into our curriculum. And we've figured out, even the events that you'll see, we're doing a pumpkin and painting. Well, Meredith teaches a freshman seminar class with 20 freshmen. I said, well, what day is it? Well, Monday's at 10. Well, guess what we're doing sometime in October? Monday's at 10. We're going to paint some pumpkins with her class and bring in our older adults, the seniors that come into the community. And then I thought, well, gosh, I teach my freshman seminar on Thursdays at 11. We're going to do a games and gratitudes Thursdays at 11 with my 20 students. So finding ways where we already have our engaged students who need learning experiences, and then adding in the seniors to have that intergenerational. So we kind of figured out like a little recipe that's sustainable. And so I think now that we're onto that, we're like, oh man, this is going to get cool.
Yeah,
It's exciting.
great program. I love the fact that the older and younger are getting together and finding it so valuable and rewarding. So that's real exciting. So I know we've run really long and not allowed for much Q&A time. No, it was a whole thing. We've had a lot of great information today. So I think that we'll open it up for questions. Of course, everyone's staying around. There's handouts for more information. So Beth, do you want to come up and join us and see if anybody has specific questions that they'd like to ask any of our panelists?
University campuses can be notoriously difficult to navigate if you're not used to them. And as the population moves west, I'm just wondering if there's going to be a satellite office, for the class to be out this way.
So the question was about moving west for the Linden-W.I.S.E program?
I spent years at Washington U, and I go back there now and I don't recognize it. And Lindenwood is unfamiliar to many of us. So it would be wonderful if we could do something like fabulous programs. This maybe more in St. Peters, O'Fallon area. We have a satellite.
Yeah. So we also have a satellite campus in Wentzville. So we're thinking about running that program out there as well, but with high school students rather than the university students. With it being on campus, we do use a centralized building that everybody usually goes to, and it's one of the easier buildings to get to on campus. But along with that, we're looking at options to do W.I.S.E on wheels, where we would go out to places like this, have a 2-hour-long session rather than 8 weeks. So it would be a more condensed, but it would still be, you know, here or a different facility, things like that. So we're looking at those kind of options as well.
Thanks.
What is the contact so that we could sign up for this?
For sure. So we have a W.I.S.E email, or we have more information over there. There's a QR code. There's also an email that you can also email for more information, or to just join our email list that we blast out to everyone as well.
And it's just W.I.S.E, W-I-S-E, at lindenwood.edu. It's the email.
So you can also, if you want to put on your goldenrod sheet that you wanted to have that information, we will have them get in contact with you if you give us your contact info.
I just want to say, sorry.
When's the next event?
Yeah, I mean, in other words, you're filled up right now. When's the next one?
Oh, for cyber seniors, it will not be until March. Because since that's connected with the class, our students, they leave after December, and they're not back until mid-January. Yeah, then you get the program up and going. But again, we hope to have more sections, so to be able to accommodate around 40 people. So if you get on our mailing list, we'll be able to get those dates and when the registration will be.
And your next actual event is Pumpkins?
The pumpkins.
October.
It's on our flyer over there.
23rd.
There we go, October 23rd.
Okay.
I'll update in my head.
That's a Monday.
Madeline?
I just wanted to say, when you said QR code, you lost that.
So, you know,
Teach that as well.
yes, on one of the days, we actually just took 10 minutes and said, okay, to get signed up for W.I.S.E, we actually have an online survey, but we usually just do a hard copy. We said, you know what, today we're all going to do the online survey. We pulled up a QR code and our students helped everyone learn, and we actually fill out an online survey. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Just grab the flyer. We'll get you enrolled.
Well, they say, when something's on TV, they'll say, click it. Well, by the time I'm there,
It's gone. Oh, I hear you. Yep.
I had the same problem in classes that I attend. They put it up on the screen, and by the time you get your notes, I'm like, not fast enough.
And we're open to suggestions on communication. We had a phone. We didn't do a good job with our intern checking the voicemail. So, you know, we're learning as well. So we're open to any feedback as you participate or, suggestions. Very welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Beth, could you give me a sample of some activities that physical therapy would help with memory issues?
Oh, so the question is, how does physical therapy help with memory issues? So oftentimes, somebody with memory issues is not capable of going to like a group exercise class on their own because they get lost, they're overwhelmed, and so some one-on-one sessions are very helpful. We've found that when you do cardio, so when we get the heart rate up, we get the blood pumping to everywhere, including the brain. So when you increase the blood flow to the brain on a regular basis, you're helping to keep that brain tissue as healthy as possible. They've also done research on high-intensity strength training, and strength training has been found to be more protective of reasoning and a couple other key areas. It really protects the hippocampus, which is the area most vulnerable to memory loss. So we really recommend a good exercise program for folks living with memory issues to keep up really to keep up their strength and independence so that they don't become a physical burden on the caregiver. And sometimes sending somebody to a regular exercise class is just not a good fit. So we can get them started on a routine, graduate you home with it, but it's going to be a combination of high intensity cardiac or interval training to get the heart rate up, to keep the blood flowing up to the brain, to keep it as healthy as possible, as well as strength training. One, because it has protective effects for the brain, but it also helps people to stay independent, and the loss of mobility is one of the biggest burdens when you're living with a loved one that has dementia. Yes?
I've long been a proponent of proactive physical therapy because I love, you guys are wonderful. How can I sign up for, do you have classes? I mean, without going through my doctor or whatever.
Yeah, so same thing, grab our information, sign up for our newsletter, there's a copy of it there, and then we do offer a free fitness consultation, we offer a free week of classes, we do things that are online, so you don't have to come to us, we do online classes so that you can be anywhere in the St. Louis area, and we are trying to partner with places to take our classes from our gym in South County 2 locations. We teach 3 locations outside of our gym space right now. That was our pilot. They've been beautiful. We just did 13-week testing. Everybody's scores are getting better. Everybody loves it. And now we're trying to find out how to get out here and have some classes here. So if you guys know a place to host, again, grab our stuff, reach out, we'll have some talks.
We need to talk too.
There's a lot of excitement up here today.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're going to come out here. I've been collecting your articles since you ride in the Mid-Rivers, and you're on Levy Ferry or way out there, so I'm glad to hear that. And also, now I'm probably going to forget something here, because I have 2 questions. I'll probably have to come back on that one.
Yeah, we do. So yes, we're based here. We do have a mobile team that covers this area for the therapy, and we're looking to find locations to partner with to send our physical therapists out to teach exercise classes, the ones we've created down at our gym in South County, because we realize everybody can't come down to us, so we need to get out into the community.
And they do currently have the mall walking program.
Yes, so that's the one thing that we do
Rivers
have.
Mall. So, they are trying to definitely grow out here and be more accessible for St. Charles County.
I just remembered, because this would be wise, a combination. I tried to do one of yours on my Android phone, one of your online classes, Dr. Beth.
Yeah.
And it
It
just
didn't
said
work?
that it gave me a warning like it was going to.
I don't know about that. I know sometimes it's hard to join that we found that the barrier is how do I join the class, a Zoom class live. But all of our classes are recorded, and as soon as the class is over, an email gets sent with the recording. So some of our folks have chosen that option because they don't have somebody to work with them on the barrier of getting onto a live Zoom. So we've realized that, and so an email with the recording goes out, and that way you don't have to worry about logging in and signing in. Now, you do miss the social interaction of the class. You get to watch the playback version of it, so depending on what the goal is. But yes, our front desk is usually pretty good about coaching over the phone all the steps to log into Zoom, or you can go to W.I.S.E.
Okay. I love the collaboration. So getting people who are all dedicated to working with seniors is wonderful. And I know in having our Zoom call, a lot of people were like, they always go, I didn't know that. And you guys are asking questions among each other. So it is really awesome to see that. So we are over time, so I thank you for your patience in that. Our next month's seminar is on Medicare. So open enrollment starts October 15th. You don't know what you don't know, so I encourage you to sign up and come. We're going to talk about what's new in 2024 and preparing for open enrollment. So hope you'll sign up for that. Can we please have a round of applause for our great